And now, Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today for Deborah Kobylt Live. Lovely guest, friend to the show, who's on with us today, Kathryn Leigh Scott. Thanks, Kathryn, for being here.
Thank you, Deborah. It's good to be back.
Yes, good to be back is right. So glad this worked out, right? With COVID-19 and people moving around, New York, California, it's like we made it happen. So we got a lot to talk about today. In particular, your latest novel, September Girl, which is fantastic. And I love sort of the subtext. There you go. There's your book. And I've got my copy as well. And I love sort of the subtext of this, how it talks about a young girl, a young woman who is traveling around with her journalist boyfriend. Is that correct? You want to set it up for me?
That's right. She's a picture researcher. They're both working for a big news magazine, and he's a photojournalist. So, and it's a very passionate, romantic relationship, and it's really her first love.
And it is loosely based on your own life. Is that correct, Kathryn? Come on, fess up.
Yeah, okay, all right. I will fess up to this degree. I have a weakness for journalists. I've been married to two. I'm currently dating one. My husband passed away some years ago. And I know that world. So
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the people in your life. Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of a sentence, but you know, I mean, your first husband was a tremendous photojournalist, a very, very esteemed photojournalist, right? Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, Ben Martin was a Time Life photojournalist. He died 2 years ago, and at the age of 86. And he photographed for Time Life and Fortune People, all of the other Time Life magazines. And I have just donated his entire collection of photographs to the Briscoe Center at the University of Texas, Austin. But he was just a wonderful, very talented photographer. And we were very close. I mean, we divorced many years ago.
But you remained really tight.
To remain married to a photojournalist. But I never saw him. The first year we were married, I actually saw him 39 days, I counted. But I know his world. And we also ran a publishing company together. And right up until the day he died, we were very close. And in fact, when he became ill, we spoke each day. So yeah, we were very, very close. And he knew that I was writing September Girl. He didn't know what the story was, but I always called him my personal Wikipedia. The man knew everything. I actually called him up and I said, do you remember when there was that airplane service between England and France? Can you remember where? Well, he had the schedule. He knew where it took off, when it was.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no. He had an incredible memory.
Tell some of our viewers some of the photos that they would absolutely know are his, that they would have seen.
Yeah, you would have seen. Well, there was a famous photo. It was a Life magazine cover photo of Jacqueline Kennedy with her children at the funeral for Kennedy. And wonderful pictures of Martin Luther King. Ben walked backward in front of Martin Luther King on the March to Selma. And pictures of Queen Elizabeth, Malcolm X.
History.
I can't even say all of them, but he photographed wars, fashion. He was all over the world.
And your second husband, who passed away, he was the publisher, right, to LA Magazine?
He was the founding editor and publisher of Los Angeles Magazine, and he started it in June of 1960, straight out of UCLA. He created the template for LA Magazine while he was doing graduate work at UCLA. And again, I donated his papers to UCLA because that is where Los Angeles Magazine started. And he passed away, I can't believe it, 9 years ago.
Fast.
I mean, he was simply the love of my life. I was very lucky. With really both of my husbands, they were both good marriages. I just wish that I had seen more of the first one when we were married.
Yeah, and I just want to mention your partner currently is editor over at Bloomberg, and he also has worked with the
a long time editor at Bloomberg News, and he's an attorney. And he's always written in that nexus between finance and law. And he's also a thriller writer. So we have absolutely everything in common. So again, I'm truly lucky with the men in my life.
Yeah, but such interesting men, which also leads to a very, very interesting and compelling book in September Girl. Can you reveal a little bit about the book for those people who haven't read it yet? So we can tease them a little bit to run out and get it, because it's very fascinating. Right. A few reveals.
September Girl it's part mystery, it's part romance. I normally write mystery, so this is my first what we call standalone novel. That's a story all by itself, and it alternates between two time periods, 1965 and 2000, which is the new millennium, and it's when a woman, Livy, who is newly widowed and grieving for a husband that she loved very much, discovers something that catapults her back in time to a traumatic incident that really changed her life.
It's one of these moments when you read it.
And then 30 years later, she uncovers the truth about what happened, and it is not at all what she expected, and in fact we don't either. And as you mentioned, there are 5 reveals in this book, 5 things that you could not possibly have imagined, and certainly Livy didn't. But it's really the core of the story is what if you were to discover that another woman had been living your life, a life that you had every reason to think would be your life, and it isn't, and it really has to do with another fascination of mine, which is secrets, the kinds of secrets we keep, and why we keep them. And in my opinion, I think by keeping a secret from someone, you're also denying someone else knowledge that could probably change their life, at least change a choice, which could affect the path that they take and perhaps their destiny. So that's
what an incredibly profound thing to say. You're right, because everybody's got a secret of some sort. And I was just thinking one that I might even had, and I thought, what if I revealed that, how that could help somebody else? Yeah, you're absolutely right?
If you think about it, what if somebody were to say to you, Deborah, could you just hold this bag of money for me and not tell anyone? And you'd say, why would you want me to keep a bag of money for you? In other words, there's got to be something behind that. And you think when people keep a secret, that secret is almost always denying somebody else knowledge. Anyway, it's another thought that I think I have about writing. When I write novels, they always seem to begin with what if. So this is a huge what if.
There's the journalist, right, in you, being surrounded by journalists your whole life. My mom said, and my dad said this too, that one of my first words, and I carried it through my life, was why, to the point where they didn't even have answers anymore. They said, I don't know, Debbie, go figure it out. So I get it. You're asking why and what if, which makes for a very, very compelling book. Let's go back to the book for a second. Okay. So how do you think she handled things when she discovered this?
Well,
I can't reveal it. I'm dying to reveal it, but I won't.
I think that the most interesting characters in a novel, of course, are flawed ones. Nobody wants to read about a perfect person. And Livy is certainly not a perfect person. And her anger, her rage at discovering what she discovers, I think she has to make peace with that. She finds out that when what she thought was the love of her life, a great romance with this photojournalist, that she knew back when both were working for this news magazine. He is a photojournalist. She is a picture researcher. She imagined that she would have a life with him, and it's abruptly cut short, and it has dire consequences for her. And the secrets that are kept and that she is denied knowledge of for some 30 years have really profoundly affected her life. And she has to make peace of that. So I think that when you're writing a novel, your reader wants some sort of redemption, some sort of growth. That character really has to travel a journey. And for this woman, it is a chance meeting that reveals something to her. It catapults her back to try to find out the truth of what happened. When she did, she's enraged, and she has every right to be.
Oh, absolutely. I was enraged reading it. Absolutely. Really, Kathryn.
I know. Somebody got in touch with me a few days ago, and actually it's a family member, and just said, I finally got around to reading your book. And I was so angry. And I said, why? And they said, I don't think you want to know, but it was something that happened to me. And I said, oh, right, I don't want to know. It's a family member. And, but yes, any number of people have said that when they read it, they were enraged on behalf of the character, because it's just profoundly disturbing that something like that could be kept from her, and that something that she wanted so much was denied her. That's a really hard pill to swallow, especially when there's no way to go back and undo the damage, when there's no way to go back and make it right.
Gosh, that was the hardest part for me as I read it. And it got me thinking about my life, other people's lives, people that have passed. Gosh, sometimes you just can't go back and make it right.
That's right.
And it really got me thinking. You hooked me in to the point where I couldn't put the book down.
Yeah, you cannot unring a bell. Once something is said or done, it's out there. So
gosh, these are really lessons that we can only really learn when we're older. Somebody could tell you this when you're 18 or 19 and you're like, but then as you've lived life and it goes on in life, you realize your consequences, the consequences of so much of what you do.
Yeah. I could not have written this book when I was 30 or 35. I mean,
no.
This is the book that I think I was meant to write now. And obviously I use the life that I had with my husband, my first husband, and I was so fond of him, and he was just a wonderful man. So I really used that because this woman is very much in love with him. And even though she went on to have a very happy marriage, so there are no regrets there. The regrets aren't at all to do with that. The regrets really have to do with the consequences of decisions made behind her back.
Right, that she wasn't even aware of. Oh my gosh.
Right.
But what's interesting about this, we were just talking about how you wouldn't be able to write this book at 30 or 35. You've had a long and distinguished career, not just as an author, because I think you've written 14 books, 15 now, fiction, nonfiction. You've written fiction and nonfiction. You've had an esteemed career as an actor, right? Best known, we all know you from Dark Shadows.
That's
and
right.
I think people still know you from.
Comes back again.
Right? But yeah, talk about that. Talk about how you ended up in Dark Shadows. Actually, your career sort of took off very quickly, right? From Dark Shadows.
I was very lucky.
Yeah.
Because I was
and talented, but yeah.
But I was a student at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and Dark Shadows was really my first job. And to start out as the lead in it was a soap, but to start out as a lead character, that's quite extraordinary. And then Dan Curtis, who created Dark Shadows, directed a feature film for MGM, House of Dark Shadows, which saved MGM from bankruptcy the year it was made. It made a lot of money. and
Wow.
starred in the film. I didn't realize I starred in the film until many years later. Leonard Maltin said to me, you starred in that film. You're in that film more than anybody else. And decades had gone by before I actually.
Oh, come on, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we were such an ensemble. You never thought that, somebody, had the lead. If anybody, it would have been the fellow that played the vampire, Barnabas Collins. So that was, but that was a good way to be. And I think I was just terribly lucky to have that as my very first job. And I was very lucky also that then I lived abroad, so I did a lot of film and theater work in Paris and certainly in London. I lived in London many years, and I did a lot of film and television and theater work there. So,
oh, wow. Tell me about some of the plays, some of the theater that you did in London. I mean, what better place to do theater than London? Yeah.
Well, I worked at the Bristol Old Vic, which was Rep, and that's really exciting for an American to be hired to work in a repertory theater. But I did a play called Harvey with Jimmy Stewart in the West End at the Prince of Wales Theatre. That was wonderful. We became lifelong friends. And when I moved to Los Angeles, it turned out that I lived only blocks away from his house. And I was so fond of him. So, I was just very lucky about the kind of work that I've been able to do. So certainly, I wouldn't trade what I've done for anything else. It's been a wonderful ride.
No, it's been amazing. And you also worked over at the Playboy Club in New York, right? Weren't you trained by Gloria Steinem?
That was when I was in school.
Girls got to make money, right? You got to make money. You're waiting. Essentially, you're waiting tables. Just your little outfit was a little shorter than others, right?
But to put it in context, you have to understand. I was a farm girl from Minnesota. I arrived in New York. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I needed money to live on. The New York Playboy Club opened, so I auditioned. I got the job as a bunny. So there I was in school in the mornings. And then in the taxi on the way over to the Playboy Club, I put on the eyelashes, glam myself up, and work as a Playboy bunny, serving cocktails. But I happened to be hired in January of 1963, and that's shortly after the club opened. And I was in bunny training with Gloria Steinem, and there were only 7 of us in bunny training.
Bunny training. That's just a funny little term. Bunny training.
I didn't drink, so you had to learn the names of all the scotches and how to make drinks and whatnot, and how to serve and so on. It was
right. Wasn't there that like little serve, like you had to bend a certain way, like from the back or something?
I've always described it as a walk on the wild side. In a very safe place. The Playboy.
How crazy that Gloria Steinem was a bunny. Wow.
Well,
I didn't.
No, but she was not really a bunny. She was an undercover journalist. And I talked to Gloria on a number of occasions. She interviewed me without my knowing it. We had dinner together times because, again, there were only 7 of us being trained together. And we really kind of hit it off. I was sorry when she left. And then I was really dismayed when her 2-part article came out in a magazine called The Bunny's Tale. And she wrote about me and all of the other young women, all of us a good deal younger, at least 10 years younger than she was. And we were all bitter about it because it's simply not the way you treat another woman or somebody that you work with. We were all astonished. So years later, I wrote The Bunny Years, and I interviewed all of the women that I had worked with. I even found the very first bunny who was hired in Chicago. I interviewed maybe 250 some women to write the book. And in a way, it was to set the record straight.
Very cathartic. You did. You set the record straight.
I did not want what Gloria wrote to become the gospel of the way things were. There was another side to it, and I wanted to give voice to the women who had actually worked as bunnies. So I'm very proud of that, and the fact that I co-produced an A&E documentary, 2 hours, 1 hour for BBC and 1 hour for Canadian television based on the book. So no matter what happens, the real story is out there if anyone is interested. If anybody is interested in Playboy bunnies anymore, and I can't imagine that they are. But
it's such come on, it's got such a lore. It really does. Even like the Miss America pageant, while these may have gone on many, many years ago and frankly are still going on, there's such a lore to it, right? To have been a bunny girl. Or
it's like I used to, when I was a Playboy bunny, I used to equate it to being a Ziegfeld girl, a showgirl. It was, that was 2 decades before we were bunnies. There were Ziegfeld girls, and you know, then something else comes along. But for that era, that was the fun, great, interesting thing to do. And Debbie Harry worked with us, and Lauren Hutton and I were hired the same day.
Oh, and she's so stunning, right? I love her.
I adore her. And she's in the book, and Deborah Harry is in the book. Susan Sullivan, who's one of my closest friends, is in the book. But these women went on to great careers, not just in performing arts, but
well, it's how many women started and how they started in the business, you know, right. And they were proud. Yeah.
It was a launching pad. There were women who became, there's one who's a scientist with the National Institutes of Health. There are CEOs and entrepreneurs, restaurateurs, everything, school teachers, librarians, doctors, architects. These women went on to really interesting lives. But
it's our story. It's our story.
Time, they were Playboy bunnies.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. So look at what you've done. You've starred with Jimmy Stewart. You're an author. You've been a bunny. You do voiceover work, and you've got quite a few. You got quite a bit that's come out recently too, right? Not just voiceover work, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, in January and February, I had 3 feature films come out, and I did an episode of The Blacklist, which was really fun to do.
Oh, really? Okay, I want to talk about that. So you did an indie horror thriller called Loon Lake, right?
Yes, I did, with David Selby, who was with me in Dark Shadows. He played Quentin, and we did Loon Lake, and we actually filmed it in southern Minnesota, and I'm from Minnesota.
So, so you got to go back home.
Fun thing to do, right? And and then in January and February this year, there were 3 films. One was The 11th Green, and that's with Campbell Scott. In that one, I play Mamie Eisenhower, which was wonderful. I loved playing Mamie Eisenhower. I loved doing the research about her.
I was going to say, how did you do the research? Did you watch a lot of films and read about her? How do you do that?
Oh yes, I watch. There's a lot on YouTube, and then I read 4 biographies, and she was just a very interesting woman. I think because she was First Lady immediately before Jacqueline Kennedy, who was such a superpower. I mean, you know. Just an amazing, glamorous woman. We forget Mamie Eisenhower was actually, she was considered a bit of a fashion plate. She was so many things, a wonderful hostess. I'm surprised the Kennedy Center is named the Kennedy Center, not the Eisenhower Center, because
is that right? Interesting.
Started with them. So it's really, there's so many things that you find out that are sort of hidden truths, and that's what makes it fun to play a real life person.
Yeah. Where can we find that, by the way? The 11th Green.
I don't know where you can find it now.
It did well, right? The Palm Springs Film Festival, right?
It premiered at the Palm Springs Film Festival, and that was really fun to go to, and then Three Christ, John Avnet directed Three Christ, which is a wonderful film.
That's with Richard Gere, right? And who else is in
Gere and Julianna Margulies. I worked with them. Stephen Root, I play his wife. He's a wonderful actor. And Walter Goggins, Walter Goggins, and I'm trying to think of everybody. It was just an amazing cast, and I really liked that film. And then I did Woody Allen's A Rainy Day in New York. I I'm a great fan of Woody's films. It was wonderful to work with him. So I'm delighted.
What's he like? Because you always hear that he just lets you go, that he assumes that as the actor, you know what to do. Is that true? Is that what he's like as a director?
No, I've read that as well. Because I don't know Woody personally. I mean, I was just cast in the film, and it's
right.
No, he directs, and to watch him and the DP, the lighting cameraman, Strara on set working it was just a treat. I worked with Timothy Chalamet and Cherry Jones. It's a lighthearted, vintage Woody Allen comedy. I couldn't be happier. I got to work with Woody.
And again, you're a woman who's been in the business for many decades. And no, but that's a great thing, right? That's what we all want in our lives. We want to be able to continue the work that we enjoy. Should we be fortunate enough, right, to do work that we enjoy?
And by the way, that's something I would love to. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, but I never say anything political on Facebook at all. But there was one thing.
Me neither.
It absolutely got under my skin, and I'm going to just I just vented on my Facebook page, and I think
Tell us.
People who follow me were probably very surprised. But I wrote, the headline says it all: the cruel ageism of COVID-19 threatens to temporarily purge older actors from the screen. Now, keep in mind, 2 months ago, I had 3 feature films come out, and I was in the blacklist, and so I wrote, really, one size, one age fits all? Will COVID-19 provide an excuse not to hire actors over a certain age? Believe me, this thinking unchallenged will extend beyond just actors to everyone in my industry and outside of it. And speaking personally, I'm infuriated that my age, and you can see I've got gray hair, should prevent me, with absolutely no underlying conditions, from working in my beloved chosen profession. I'm fit and able. I don't even wear eyeglasses. So I couldn't help it. And it goes on a bit longer. I mean, if you're venting, you're venting. But I just said, I relish early calls. I love long days on location. And here's another thing. I don't know how many sets I've been on in the last couple of years where I know my lines, and there are actors decades younger than me that don't know theirs. I mean, there is no reason to say just because you're of a certain age, a certain vintage, you're past it and can't do the job. That's
Can I tell you something?
infuriating.
That's clickbait. That's all that article was. It's just
okay.
Here today,
you know what?
tomorrow.
It made me think that there are so many excuses for ageism, for any other kind of isms. And we don't want COVID-19 to turn into one of those. And you're absolutely right. It was clickbait. But it got under my skin.
And I tell you, if any director or anyone is on a set and says, geez, we're a little concerned about hiring someone over the age of, just say, that's nonsense. We're healthy people. Everyone has to really do their part in this time, right? And it's just, that's what I say to that article, clickbait. Yeah. But I'm glad that you responded to it. I really am, because you gotta stick up for all of us, right? I mean, there's ageism everywhere. There are people who are over 30 who are considered too old, 40, 50, 60, and then above, right? I mean, it never ends.
Anybody in my industry. It happens with writers, directors, as a director.
It's nonsense. Nonsense. No, I really feel like it's nonsense. Our best work is an accumulation of our life, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're proof of that. Just look at September Girl.
Thank you for letting me vent, because I got away with it again.
Well, I'm glad you spoke out, because so many of us feel that way. We're not going to have other people make decisions for us, but that's the great thing about independent work, having more women who are making decisions. I would hope that they would be a little more gentle about making those kinds of decisions. We need older people of all ages. We need moms, grandmoms. We need everybody, right?
Yep. And it's not just women. I mean, men face ageism as well. So,
yeah. But back to September Girl, because
Yes.
what do you prefer? Do you prefer writing, or do you prefer acting, or is it all just one big
Both.
arts?
I mean,
Yeah.
one is collaborative. Acting is collaborative, and
Yeah.
you're always on a set or on a stage or a rehearsal room. But writing is just you and a blank page or a
Yeah.
blank screen. So I really I embrace both. I can't imagine my life without doing both. I've been an actor and a writer since I was 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
It's been my entire life, and I see it now that I will go out as an actor and a writer.
Yeah. Tell me how you're spending your time during COVID-19, because I know that you're back east.
I am.
What
I
have you
am.
been doing to stay busy? Are you writing? Or
I'm
what do you do? I know
writing,
you're
and I'm writing. I'm also going through all of Ben Martin's photographs and getting them on Getting Images, which is again a real walk through history. It's just fascinating, and but I'm also keeping very fit. I'm here with Patrick. We walk as Airedales twice a day. That'll stay fit. And I do my exercise program every morning. We love to cook. He's wonderful. So up here in the Hudson Valley, there's no shortage of anything. The stores aren't crowded. We're social distancing without any difficulty.
Oh,
So
it's so lovely there.
it's
It's
just a
so
good
lovely.
it's a good place to be right now. And
Yeah.
as soon as New York City and Los Angeles are open for business and we can all get back to work safely, that's what I will be doing. But right now, this is a really good time to just kind of lie fallow and write and do what you can.
I appreciate you being such an inspiration to all of us. And I know that's an overused word, inspiration, but you really are, because you're always very cheerful and upbeat about anything you do, And I love even talking about that article that irritated you. It was with meaning. I'm telling you, you just really inspire a lot of people. You do, to just
Thank
keep
you.
going at what you love to do. It's just great.
Well, I hate being unhappy. I can't stand being unhappy, so I'll find a way not to be.
Yeah. Any parting words that you'd like to tell our audience about September Girl, to tease them to go and get that, or to go and find some of your work out there on?
Well, I would love it if well, first of all, the book is always available on Amazon.com. It's
Right.
It's available in ebook and in print. You can also go on my website, www.kathrynleightscott.com, and that's if you want a signed copy. Otherwise, just go on Amazon or any of the other places where you buy books. I've tried to indicate that there are surprises in the book, but I think you will be surprised, because anybody who has read my other mysteries and so on, you'll still find the humor. You'll find the my world in those books. But in September Girl, I think you find something a little more poignant and something that might stay with you. I'd love to hear from people who read my books. And if you go on my website, there's a place to get in touch with me, and that would be great.
That's beautiful. And I just want to say one thing. You know what I've been doing sometimes at night? This is crazy. I've been watching old TV shows that I used to watch on reruns, like Bewitched and and Genie. Clearly, I guess I was a little girl who wished that I had magic powers. But I'm actually going to go tonight and watch an older Dark Shadows. I'm going to look that up, and I want to watch one of the early ones. Won't that be great?
We have 1,225 episodes of Dark Shadows available.
Yeah, I like to start in the beginning
or something.
Yeah. Oh, so, you can find all this stuff. So I've had so much fun looking up stuff that I used to watch as a little kid, whether it was first time or reruns. So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. I'm going to watch an older version of Dark Shadows, and I can't wait.
Thank you, Deborah. Oh, it's lovely to talk to you again.
Yes.
I don't know anybody who puts as much into interviewing people and preparing for it. It's just a delight to talk with you. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for being on our show. Everybody, please pick up September Girl and get in touch with Kathryn, get in touch with me. Let me know what you thought about it. I promise, really, I give you this. It's really tough to put down. You're going to have some emotion attached to reading this because you're going to say, what? You're kidding. It's a terrific read. So thank you very much for sharing. Thank you very much for writing it. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. And you can find our show on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. We cut up and have some promos on Instagram, on Twitter. And then after that, you can listen to us anytime you want on any place where you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you get them, you'll find us. So thank you also for joining us all the time on Deborah Kobylt Live. We appreciate it. Thanks, Kathryn. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.